So everyone, welcome back to the Aryan Zag channel. My name is Vedant. Today we are discussing why everyone on the internet is basically a cynic. So I have a question for you guys, right? When was the last time you saw something genuinely awesome on the internet that you thought, okay, this is actually low-key pretty fire, right? Not that thing where someone compliments something but buries it in so many called that kind of is a mouthful to say. I'm gonna skip that part. You're just excited, unguarded, like a normal human being who encounters something that they enjoy and allows themselves to actually enjoy it. I'll wait. What was the last time when this happened to you? Yeah, I don't remember that either. Oh, by the way, a lot of you are not subscribed and are still viewing this video. The main problem with that is you will forget who I am. Sorry for the interruption. Let's get back to the video. And I've been thinking about why that is for a while now. And it's actually like a really good thing to think about. It's really weird because it's one of those things that is making like everyone slowly more critical over time and nobody's calling it out directly. So that is what this video is about. So this video is about why majority of the internet is cynic. Let me start out with an example, right? Imagine that you're building something that is really cool. It takes years. It is a startup. You're building a body, a piece of writing, a relationship, a company, something that takes a really long time. Years, actual years of your life are being used to make this thing. When you was bad at something, you constantly improve and you become good, and you put in the work that nobody does, nobody sees, and then you create something that you're completely proud of. Well, then you post it online. You post it, suppose, on a form, or you make a YouTube video on top of it. And there's that one comment that tears everything apart. 14 words, and it's not even spell checked. It's posted from a phone where they're when when they're in a really embarrassing situation, like maybe on the toilet, maybe they're walking and they see your product or whatever that you have created, and it is a criticism of tearing everything apart. So the ratio of the critics to creators is always completely cooked. The internet did not create that asymmetry. It was just visible at a scale that makes it almost surreal if you actually stop and look at it. One person builds something really cool over 2 years. Suppose 10,000 people view it, and around 10% of that is just harsh criticism, building that thing down. Now, this is what I really wanted to talk about. These comments are not even being honest on how they feel. Most people consume something and feel either positive or negative. So if something is positive, they just move on. They don't comment, they don't post. But when something is really negative or doesn't align with their views, they have to comment. They have to make sure that you know that they really hate your product. They really hate your whatever you're doing. That is what they do. So the content that spreads is disproportionately negative. The comments you read are disproportionately negative. The entire vibe of online discourse is skewed by this pressure that tends towards negativity, towards more anger, and more cynical than it actually is. And being cynical and criticizing the creator is actually a good thing, right? But the problem is the ratio is very imbalanced because people don't want to comment positive things. They don't want to say, oh, good job, mate, like you got a good video here. If it is a good video, people just move on from it and they don't really think much about it. But when the content is actually consumed, if it is a negative thing that you experienced while watching that content, then only a comment is made. You're not seeing like how humans actually feel, like you're not seeing a cross sectional area. You're just seeing a very curated thing, only negative comments, and these negative comments are served you because they gain a reaction from it. And the main point of social media is to attract your attention. It is not to um it is basically stealing your attention. That is the job of social media. You are the product and you are inside that product right now. They want you to consume more content. That's what I'm saying. So criticism actually makes you consume more and makes you interact more. That is the point. So criticism as a social currency. The mechanics of the platform aren't even the interesting part. The most interesting part is what cynicism does for people socially and what they're getting out of. While you're being online, the person sees through things that signals intelligence, or at least performs it in a convincing enough way that most people don't really see the difference in the comment section. Enthusiasm reads, okay, in being enthusiastic about something usually comes off as naivety on the internet, and skepticism reads as sophistication. Detachment reads as having seen enough to know better. So there's this massive social incentive on the internet to perform this kind of detachment, to position yourself above whatever is being discussed without ever having to produce anything yourself. It costs nothing. You don't have to make anything. You don't have to know anything about that particular topic. You have to be a skeptic. You have to be a cynic. And you just have to be the person in the comment who is not impressed. And that position comes with a feared kind of status that the internet gives away freely and indefinitely. So basically, what I'm saying here is being critical or being a skeptic is how you perform on the internet. Look at Dogpack, for example. So he attacked Mr. Beast very publicly, and that is what garnered that attention, because that resentment, that criticism has been brewing over the years, because people don't like to be overwhelmingly positive towards something. It is always a double-edged sword, and when you create something negative, it actually gets more attention than positivity. Take my video, for example, the Zepto criticism video. It gained a lot of traction because it was overwhelmingly negative. I deliberately made the video very negative, and the title and the thumbnail are designed so that people click on it. And you can't really blame me here, because that is how the system works. You can spend years building something, you can put thousands of hours into getting competent at a craft, and then you share it. And someone who has spent 0 hours on anything can just dismiss it in 4 seconds and get some likes for it. In real life, this gets corrected eventually. If you're negative, you're constantly negative, people will stop inviting you to places. They start finding reasons to not be around you, and the social cost accumulates over time, and there's always a feedback loop. That's how the Reddit moderator thing came into place, right? Reddit moderators, their job is to be a cynic. Their job is to remove all the trash content from the subreddit and replace it with and only approve good content. In their perspective, they are the definition of a cynic. That's how cynicism spreads on social media, right? The moderators have to filter out this content, and this behavior gets reinforced indefinitely. That's why if you see the stereotype of moderators on either Discord or Reddit are just fat people who are alone in their mom's basement. That is the definition of a cynic these days. But it doesn't have to be that way. It is just their job that has made them that way. You can't really blame them, but their negative actions do have an impact on the community. That is the part where a lot of people hate Reddit moderators. So, this is the section 2, the part where I have to be honest about myself. Okay, I have to stop here and be honest for a second. I'm I've been that guy. I have been the critic in the past, and not in a funny, relatable way. I have been resentful or envious of people who are done better than me. And I told myself that it was actually taste, and told myself that I have high standards, and I'm not really easily impressed by something that is mediocre. That is a very non-flattering story that you can tell about yourself, but it is true. Everyone has been a cynic in the past, and the problem with being cynic is there's no problem with being cynic, right? You can stay cynic forever. The problem comes when it takes over your life and you become harshly negative of everything. Cynicism is the basis of philosophy. You have to go ahead of cynicism sometimes, and you have to actually build and create stuff. Cynicism is an armor. That's the whole function. It is not a worldview. It is not a philosophy in my perspective. It is risk management. If you have never really genuinely invested yourself into anything, and you have never become an expert at anything, any idea or project, a dream you're slightly embarrassed to say out loud, then you can never be publicly disappointed. You can't look like you cared and got burned. I understand why people do it. I understand why I do it. The math feels sound in the moment. If you don't care, you do not lose. If you don't create, there's no losing, right? If a video doesn't get a lot of views, it discourages you because you weren't good enough to get a lot of views. That is the whole point. If you don't try, you're not losing. But if you look at it from a different way, if you don't try, that is guaranteed to be a lost cause. If you don't try something, you have already lost. That is what cynicism, that is the antidote to cynicism. If you don't try something, you've already failed at it. But there's a thing against that as well. If you don't even want to try, and there's no point in trying, I don't think that is cynicism. That is being just critical of something. But if you want to try and don't try, and then you criticize other people for trying, that is what I want to avoid. Section 3, what real skepticism actually requires. Here's the thing that I think people are most wrong about. The thing that actually annoys me, most people who perform cynicism think they are being rigorous. They think dismissal is a form of critical thinking. They think I'm not impressed is a sophisticated position. It's not. Real skepticism is genuinely hard. It requires you to actually engage with something before you critique it. It to understand it well enough that your critique is specific. To be able to articulate something that is actually genuinely bad in a way that demonstrates that you have actually thought about it a lot and what it was trying to do, why the execution fell short, and what a better version would have been. So, being critical is not actually a bad thing. What I describe as cynicism, it is my own definition, it passes as reflexive dismissal. You encounter something and you have not engaged with it. You produce something that is contempt, contemptuous, contemptuous, contemptuous response, and you make a response that is made in contempt. You get upvoted and you move on. You have contributed nothing to the conversation. You have not given actual advice to the person that is building something. You have just expressed an aesthetic position that costs you nothing and costs you no cognitive effort whatsoever. Dressed it up as wisdom and collected a social reward. These two things are not even in the same category. There's a difference between critical thinking and just working on vibes and what you agree with, you disagree. Section 3, the creator side of this. So I want to talk about what this does to the people who are actually making things because I myself am a creator. I like to build things. That is the job of an engineer. So if you're trying to build something, a channel, a project, a skill, anything where you're putting in the work in the world and asking people to engage with it, you're operating inside an environment that where the feedback you receive is symmetrically skewed. You want it to be symmetrically skewed. You want to be known for the things that you have done well, and you also want to know the things that you have done terribly. For example, this video, I would say it is edited terribly, but I would say the points I'm making is not harshly like these the points I'm not making cannot be dismissed just because of the bad editing. That is not true. So there has to be symmetry in the form of criticism to not get discouraged. I understand that most people, because of this, most people start to ignore criticism and actually become resentful against it. So if you go to Twitter and you actually criticize a startup, the most likely response is either they take the feedback and they implement it, or they fucking block you. That is the only two response you get from a founder because criticism is really negative and they get a lot of it. So it is really difficult to categorize this and ignore some things while accepting others because it is so asymmetrically skewed on the negative side. And that is a real loss because some ideas are genuinely good, but the execution sucks. And when the execution sucks, the startup owner or the creator gets discouraged and it will form a place where the creator themselves become a cynic and it will cause resentment towards the creator. So that is something that I want to avoid. That is why if you see me comment on something, it is either a joke or it is a genuine critic where I'm deconstructing the facts and trying to help the other person improve. That is the only place I comment. Or either that or it is just sarcasm, which I comment on Greg Doucette's videos. So what do you actually do with this information? So practically you have to notice when you are actually being critical in a negative way, not to suppress it but to just notice it when you are when you encounter something and you feel the pull toward dismissal. Okay, let me articulate this better. So whenever you encounter something, you have to be mindful if you're giving harsh criticism or are you actually just being dismissive for the sake of being dismissive? Now, I have done that in the past. I have commented on a place where I had no idea what was going on, but I've still commented in a negative or dismissive way, even though that field is not relevant to me. It is literally, I have no idea what they're talking about. But just one particular aspect I have been critical of. And that is the thing that I want to avoid. That is the one thing that I want you to avoid. Because it is, okay, it will make you a cynic. And the problem is not being cynic forever. You have to actually move forward with it. And I think being existentialist or being absurdist is much better than being a cynic. Third thing, and this one is actually what matters, put something out. It doesn't really have to be good. It doesn't have to be good either. You can put anything out with your name on it, because when you put your name on it, you are actually using leverage. And once you leverage yourself, that is how you grow. You have to leverage yourself and get out of a situation where you have to create something, right? If you never really try, you are just conformed to your beliefs and you are just being critic for the sake of being critic and actually don't create anything, then you are the fool here, man. You have to feel the creator side of things. You have to, help people out there. Now, this is the conclusions. Now, I always say that I suck in conclusions. Let me be really simple here, okay? This is the idea that I keep coming back to. The critics will always outnumber the creators. This guarantees it. The platform amplifies it. Critics will always get pushed to the top of the feed. Nothing about that is changing. But you don't have to be a number in that ratio. That is the choice that you make as a consumer, right? Continuously in how you face things that you encounter. You either engage with it or dismiss it. Whether you contribute to the stock of things or just trade on it. Whether you let yourself care about stuff without knowing the risk. Cynics aren't going to tell you that you made something interesting. They're not designed to. They're not function. That's not the function that they have in the ecosystem. The question is whether you need them. Now, I really want you to make something embarrassing, put your name on it, and find out what you actually care or feel about that thing, and whether this criticism is really harsh or is it a good criticism. Because self analysis is the best thing that you can actually have. And that's the whole point of the video. So let me just recap here for a second. Cynicism is not bad. You have to criticize things and make it constructive in a way that you actually know something about the field. If you don't know anything about it, then you don't really have the authority to make a negative comment on top of it, because that is what I call pseudo-intellectualism. Because you don't really know anything, but you're still criticizing it. You are doing that to just act smart. You're not actually smart. Let's just replace that smart word with wisdom. You don't have wisdom, you don't have the experience, yet you are very harsh. And that is the definition of what I like to call a cynic. Now, I really want you to subscribe because it tells the algorithm to push my videos much more. And algorithm is something that I just spent 20 minutes complaining about. So you don't really blame the player, right? You blame the game. I'll see you in the next video and make sure to subscribe. And yeah, how the fuck do we have less subscribers than the Fat and Fresh podcast? Subscribe to Overtake.